for the Susan Taylor Podcast, where we discuss the yoga of mind, medicine, and healing. Author of Feeling Good Matters, Sexual Radiance, and the Vital Energy Program, Dr. Taylor imparts authentic knowledge and practical tools that inspire, educate, and empower us to be a healing force for positive change. So join us and take your life and our planet to the next level.
Hello and welcome to episode 14, Train Your Focus, Rewire Your Brain. In this podcast, I'll talk about the importance of practice and share what science knows about learning, and how a special type of brain tissue called myelin plays a key role in helping us acquire and master skills. And then I'll offer some strategies to get you started with your meditation practice. I'm really looking forward to speaking on these great topics. Let's get started. Learning to focus requires practice. We've all heard the expression practice makes perfect throughout life, starting in our childhood. In 1993, Malcolm Gladwell's book, The Outliers, went on to popularize the concept that a person becomes an expert with just 10,000 hours of focused practice. This has, of course, been debated among research scientists and proven incorrect on many levels. But either way, people want mastery. People know that practice makes perfect. What we do know is that practice is needed to learn and improve any function, and especially we can use always the instrument as our example. If we want to learn an instrument, we practice. Well, think of the mind as an instrument that you have at your disposal to use, fine-tune, and practice that fine-tuning so that you can focus. Practicing mindfulness and focus does rewire our brain. How does it work? When we repeat an activity like playing an instrument, as I just mentioned, we strengthen the neural circuitry in the brain. You might have heard the saying that practice is like building muscles for the mind. The changes that we actually see are happening at the cellular level. We can enhance our brain matter with practice. There are two types of matter in your brain. The first is gray matter, which possesses information and directs signals and sensory stimuli to nerve cells called neurons. The second is white matter, which is a combination of nerve fibers called axons and fatty tissue. Axons are long, thin projections of neurons. Their function is to conduct electrical impulses away from the main body of the neuron itself to a target cell. You can think of an axon as an electrical wire in the way that it functions, because most electrical wires have insulation around them to prevent the loss of energy and keep the energy moving efficiently along the proper path. Axons work the same way. They have a natural insulating sheath made up of a fatty substance known as myelin that serves as a covering. That protects the nerve fibers, prevents energy loss, and helps information move along the neural pathway. When we repeat an activity, the myelin coating thickens, leading to a more efficient transfer of information. So here we're supporting the concept of practice. As we practice over and over again, the myelin coating thickens, leading to a more efficient transfer of information. So when we practice meditation in a systematic way, again, we're repeating the same steps daily. We're not just sitting down and letting our mind wander. We're actually producing a systematic pathway. Instead of building muscle memory, by which way really doesn't exist, you're actually building up myelin in neural pathways, creating what I call a superhighway of information connecting your brain to the rest of your body, and especially your gut, via the vagus nerve, which we talk about in many of our blogs and other podcasts. So we create this superhighway of information connecting our brain when we build up our myelin. And in our next podcast, we'll be talking about dietary practices in order to build up our myelin. We can train our mind and rewire our brain. as I mentioned, because as we train our mind, we rewire the brain because of the neural pathways that change with that. You know, it was once thought that the brain was static, and research has proven that the brain is actually plastic, which means it continues to change over the course of our lives. That's good news because we can change at any time. Cells grow. They form connections with new cells and create new communication pathways. Some stop talking to others and then others grow. So pathways are continually changing. And it's not just nerve cells that shift and change as we learn. Other brain cells also get into the act. As we practice something new, cells that send and receive information about the task that we're learning become more and more efficient. We create new pathways in the brain and new grooves in the mind. This is when we see that it takes less effort to do something because the neurons have become wired together. Meditation brings your awareness into focus with a systematic process that brings you from the outside to the inside. So that pathway going from the outside to the inside gets reinforced with practice. Learning to regulate the body, breath, senses, and mind, you discover the training, or that training the mind to focus, is not that difficult. However, it does require practice. Again, I repeat over and over again, you'd never expect to learn to play an instrument without practice. So why would anyone expect to work with the instrument called mind without practice? What can you do? To strengthen your brain pathways supporting focus and attention, learn to meditate for 10 minutes a day. Just 10 minutes per day consistently will have profound effects on your mood, emotions, and ability to focus. The goal here is to make practice through experience center stage so that you can build a stronger brain network. Learn to master your attention, and you'll be in command of yourself in your home, business, relationships, community, wherever you are. You will be so centered in the self as opposed to being self-centered. Here are 4 ways to get the most out of your meditation practice. Learn the science behind the practice. Why do we teach science behind the practice? Because guess what? When you learn the science behind the practice, you get those myelin sheaths thicker and you create a superhighway for electrical impulses. These often heard practice recommendations make a lot more sense. So learning the science is key and crucial. Set aside specific time every day, even if it's for 1 minute to sit. Breathe and practice. So what I tell students is, let's suppose you got up late in the morning. You have your practice in the morning. Just go to the seat. Just go to your chair. Sit for 1 minute, 30 seconds. Just make the effort to create that mind groove that you're doing that habit, and then you can go. It just creates the groove and the patterns that need to be set in order to have the experience of changing the format of what's going on in your brain. Third, create a specific space for you to do your practice free of distractions. In other words, no cell phone, computer, interruptions, and even foot traffic. So you don't want to be planting yourself in the middle of a place where people are walking around where you're going to be doing your meditation practice. And fourth, start slowly to build a foundation. Create a target time less than what you think that you want to stick to with that. An example would be 5 to 10 minutes per day. You can start with 5 minutes a day. Follow it for 40 days and then reevaluate. Now, suppose you set each day for 5 minutes. Well, if you go over that 5 minutes, that's a bonus for you. And you can continue to go over, but keep 5 minutes your commitment. What you don't want to do is make a lofty commitment of, say, 10 to 15 minutes a day, and then you only do 5 minutes a day, because the mind will perceive that as a failure, and you don't want that to happen. So the 4 ways is to learn the science, which we'll provide for you, Set aside a specific time every day, whether it be morning. Morning we find it's more conducive, or before bed in the evening. Create a space to do your practice space. I remember years I did it in a closet because there was no practice space in a one-room apartment. The closet wasn't exactly healthy, but it was big enough that I can sit. And you want to be in a place that's free of distractions. Start slowly to build a foundation. Create your target. Very, very minimal to start. If you go over, as I said, that's a bonus. Visualize yourself sitting with your head, neck, and trunk aligned, and set the intention that this is your time to meditate, and know that you will do it, and you really want to do it, and you absolutely can do it. These three concepts, you will do it, want to do it, and can do it, are what turn your will into action. Meditation training is not a silver bullet. So people are talking about it. It's very popular in the news. It's getting a lot of press, but it's not a silver bullet to anything that's going on in your life. It's a practice. It's an enhancement in your life, and it's a training that will actually train your mind, the perfect instrument that you have to do what you need to do to live with freedom and fulfillment, and to actually fulfill your life. When we combine meditation with at least 10 minutes of formal daily practice, supported over a sustained period, it can lead to some valuable changes. Then we could make a statement that we meditate and meditation works. Many times people say meditation doesn't work. Well, it's because they're not doing a consistent practice and they're not taught in a systematic way. They sit and they let their mind roam. Sitting and letting your mind roam and just be free floating is fine if you're down by a river perhaps, or you're in nature, or you want to just have a free floating mind. But for those that really want to become the architect of their lives, that really want to make a difference in how they are going to live out their life and accordingly, and learn new skills, enhance themselves, enhance the family, and contribute to society, they're going to want to have a systematic practice with sustainability. Again, meditation is a great tool with focus, with a systematic laid out format so that you can work going from the outside to the inside. And this takes practice. Not much, but just enough practice to be consistent and to create new grooves in the mind, which then in turn show new neural pathways in the brain. Remember, the energy of the mind is the essence of life. That brings us to the end of this episode. And if you'd like to be notified weekly for new podcasts, please subscribe. The Susan Taylor Podcast is available on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, and TuneIn. Also, you can subscribe on susantaylor.org. Contact us at susantaylor.org if you have any questions, comments, or feedback. And thank you again for listening. This podcast does come out every week, and any comments which you've been sending in are superb. I'm enjoying them, and I'm including them in the content that we're talking about. Until next time, remain calm.